thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Enrique Martinez. I am the technology evangelist for Novation. It's a crazy name, basically synthesizer guy for Novation for the US. In case you guys haven't seen it yet, this is our brand new 49 SL MkIII. It's the third iteration in the SL line. Basically, long story short, the biggest addition to the SL line is now the 8-track sequencer that we've introduced into this. And if some of you guys are familiar with Circuit, basically we had 2 sequencers on there for the synthesizers, but over time a lot of people started using those sequencers for hardware stuff, in which case they were really good at it because you had basically 6 notes of polyphony that you can pattern out and chain patterns and whatnot. So we basically took that idea, put it into here, added keyboards, added zones, added scales, added the arpeggiator, and made it 8 tracks. And I honestly haven't even tested how many notes of polyphony it is, but I've been able to play a ton of notes at once, and it hasn't hindered me yet. With that though, Novation is known for its MIDI controllers. Of course, we always have In Control, which can easily just take control of Ableton if you're into using DAWs and stuff like that, which is great. You have control over your devices, every parameter of the device. You're not just stuck to 8 knobs. You can usually page down. It's kind of hard to see it there, but basically any parameter you have, these 8 macro knobs will then be mapped to the next part of the device. And with that, if you have a ton of devices in a track, you can easily go and select what part of the device or what part of the track you want those knobs to affect. You have control over your pans, your sends, your faders are always your controls over the levels, mutes, solos. You can even do weird stuff, kind of like changing the monitoring. You can have it on or off or auto and whatnot. And then of course you got your grid mode in case you're like in a drum rack or something like that. You can easily see what samples you have available to you to play. Velocity sensitive pads, polyphonic aftertouch on the pads, polyphonic aftertouch on the keys, velocity sensitivity on the keys. And again, all this stuff that I'm mentioning here also applies to the hardware standalone sequencer side of things. So if we jump back to that, looking at the back of the device, basically you got CV, gate, and mod ×2 outputs for modular stuff. You have an analog clock output with an adjustable PPQN in case you're trying to clock something differently. You can almost use it like a clock divider. 2 MIDI outputs, one is a through, but you can assign it to be a second output. MIDI input, 3 pedal inputs, which you can also assign to do whatever the heck you want, and the USB port to connect to a DAW, or in this case, Ableton. The cool thing here though, with the hardware side of things, basically I have 8 tracks that I can access here. Everything's color-coded, everything's designed the way that I want it to look, the way that I want it to feel and be. So with that being said, I can easily jump through templates, and we have 64 spots for templates, and we've made a bunch already, but basically what it does is it takes control of your synthesizers remotely. So from here, I can control my big sky, I can control my peak, I can control this guy or the O coast by setting it up ahead of time. So for example, on peak, I have control over my filter frequency. Or I can use the 8 faders to be my attack, sustain, decay. So the ability to kind of map these out and be whatever I want at any given moment is really, really powerful. So with that, what's CCable and what you can assign are the 8 faders. You have 16 buttons, 8 knobs, but you have 2 banks of them, so bank 1 and then bank 2. And then the grid, which is these 16 buttons, which can also be kind of whatever you want them to be. Currently, when I press these, it'll show me what CC I'm sending out on this 5th screen. And they're, again, velocity sensitivity or channel pressure, so I can have them be assigned to like a filter cutoff, almost like a performance type of mode or anything like that. Or I can just have it do something like a simple program change, like I'm on the next track, switch my synth up. But if you're into like building a full set and doing everything from one spot, sessions, which are all color-coded and you can kind of assign, basically these are the same idea as sessions on the circuit, where in a session, it holds all your patterns, your templates, your zones, your sequence data, all that stuff, and even your program changes. So when you go to change a session, it'll change everything moving forward if you want it to be, if you set it up that way. Or you can just have it be, you know, a new set of patterns. Speaking of patterns, if we go and look at the patterns, we have 8 tracks. Each track has 8 patterns. Each pattern is 16 steps or less. You can kind of assign it. And you can also chain the patterns together to be longer than 16 steps. So you can have up to an 8-bar pattern. And the cool thing is, focusing on, like, let's say this O coast, same as you would on circuit, I can say on the very first step, play that note, right? This step, let's put it here, go there, and then press play, right? Oh, I got two patterns chained here. So we'll go here and just launch the first one that I was on. In pattern settings, we have control over our end position, so maybe we just want, 3 steps. 5, you can do anything from 16 or less, which is really cool. You have different directions. We have forward, backward, ping pong, and random, which is also really cool. And also the sync rate. So if you want something to be, let's say, longer than 8 bars, you can just run it at half the tempo and you now got 16. Or if you want it to be twice as fast, just turn the knob. And these are all per pattern. So you can have one pattern at the very end be random, almost like a drum fill if you have a drum machine or something. But then the other 4 leading up to it just be normal forward, right? So you got pattern settings, you got different scales as well, scale modes, you have an arpeggiator, and one of my favorite features about this are zones. So if I hit shift and zones, the keyboards now change. We got blue over here, green in the middle, and then this pinkish red color over here on the right. What this is signifying is all the color correspondence of these here. So basically, this pink section is my DR202. The green section is my O coast. And then I have the blue section being peak. So the cool thing here is I have access to 3 pieces of hardware from one spot. I can easily play something here and jump over to my Big Sky channel and take control of my Big Sky, which my peak is running through. So change the mix. All the while still playing this stuff over here and not interrupting the workflow. The cool thing again, if I were to say go to my DR202 track and give myself a little hi-hat, right, let's just do this. I'll clear those out. Press play. Still got that guy going. I can hit record and actually record into all of these guys' sequencer tracks from one spot, which is the zone. So if I wanted, I can say, and then I can go here and play these sounds. Super simple. The cool thing here though, you can hear that we are higher up in the register. I can say octave down, but in my zone settings, I have access to each independent zone. We can set up to 8 zones if we really wanted. And one thing I tried today was layering all 8 zones, but setting their transposition off by a little bit and creating a chord. So then I can take all 8 zones, send them to the same synth, and use this as like a chord machine, and I was just playing minor 9s in the zone setup. But you have control over what each zone does, all the way down to whether or not it's going to react or receive the pedal inputs, or like the mod wheel or the pitch bend. So my zone 1, which is my drums, I don't have it following my octave because it's always in the same section. If I go up, my kick drums are now missing, or if I go down, my kick drums are now missing. I can even say transpose by 1 because for whatever reason this receives, F is where it begins instead of C. So then I had to kind of go and find that. You can kind of fine tune this to be exactly what you need, and what you don't need, you can just kind of scar it away and just not even worry about it. So then zone 2, it's octave offset. I'll set it down by 0. And then zone 3, which is peak, I have that up by an octave. So again, from here, I can go up an octave, but I still have access to my drums. This is now changed, but it's still 1 octave lower than peak. So again, just the way you can kind of set this up and do a bunch of weird settings, especially in like a live performance type of way, is really, really fun and super easy. Another great thing is all these knobs and faders and buttons and pads and all that, like I was mentioning earlier, can be fully customized and set up to whatever you want to be. If you were to just plug this into basically components, which is our Novation website, which we use with circuit editor and all that stuff, we can set up what each fader does, what MIDI channel it's on, what CC message it sends, what value from here to there. If you want that in reverse, do you want it to be a program change? Do you want it to be MPQRN? Do you want it to be sysx? Do you want it to be CC? And it's all independent per template. So I can go back. For example, this is mine. I haven't set it up just yet, but I'm always going to have these 8 faders be the 8 levels of my octatrack. So I can have at all times just access to my octatrack, even if I'm on my peak page, or if I'm on my Big Sky page, I can just pull the kick drum out. Because I use the octatrack as my main mixer instead of an actual mixer. So the ability to just have that on-the-go access ready, instead of having to page down, page down, page down, I can just pull them here wherever I'm at, is awesome. And at the same time, I can then just say, cool, I only want the filter for my peak, the filter for a Blofeld, and whatever this is, the delay time or the release time of my peak. You can just make a performance template if you really want it. You know, that's the crazy thing. Looking at other features, for example, the arpeggiator, if I turn that on and I turn zones off, we'll be on the O-Coast. Couple of settings of the harp, you can have it be either selected to what part it is, or a specific part. In this case, I have it set to part 1 or track 1, which is the O-Coast. Cool thing here is you have control over the type of harp. We have up, down 1, up, down 2, which is like doubles the last note. And then there's also random. How many octaves it'll play, we can just set it to 1. One of my favorite things though is the gate. Works really well, especially when you have the sustain set to full. It's basically how long that note is held until it hits the next one. Your sync rate, which is cool, you can do 8th triplets, 32nd triplets, 32nd, 16th, 4ths, a bunch of things in between, how the velocity is registered, even the length of the harp. So you're probably wondering, like, why is that even an option? It's because you can actually take notes out of the arpeggiator. So turning the gate up, I can go and take specific notes out of the 16th step arpeggiator. So if we set this to 16, right? So this is now my harp. And then you can easily latch that if you really wanted. And then kind of go and like really shape it up. So that's the arpeggiator. When it comes to scales, it's a similar fashion. What you're going to learn about this is the screens kind of guide you in wherever you're at, but you don't need to rely on them when it comes to doing stuff. So by default, everything's color-coded. Right now, green is O-Coast, peak, blue, blue. This is red, I set it to pinkish red, blue sky, or the Big Sky is kind of this teal color. Cool, I know exactly where I'm at all times. But if we go into scales, I can turn on scales, and you'll see that the keyboard, the LEDs have now changed. The cool thing is I can turn on and off scales per part. So my drum machine, I have the scales off on that. If we go there, you'll see that all access to keys, basically because I don't know how to play the keys, throw them to scale, boom, I can play the keys now, but now if I have scale mode on my drum machine, some of the notes are missing and I can't access my kick drum or my snare. So just the fact that you can easily turn off a scale for a specific part is super handy. That way I have all access to all my drums. The other cool thing is basically I have every note as your root note, the type of scale I should say, and then even the sequence transposition, you can kind of shift things around, and then also how the scale mode reacts. You have display, snap, and filter. Basically, snap will take your wrong note, snap it to the correct one. Filter just won't even play it. Display will display all the scales, but let you hit all the wrong notes too if you really want to kind of just use it more as like a learning tool. From there, like I said, we got the zones, kind of where they are, where they end. Super simple to set up. For example, if I wanted to set up zone 5, it's right here. Is it on or off? It's on. What part is it affecting? It's going to affect 5, which is the base of this. And I can say, where's my low key? Just moving this knob, I want it to be maybe here to just right there. So I can just go and, you know, target a specific spot and then just set the octave down or up or transposition again, and then whether or not it's going to receive my mod wheel or channel pressure or all this stuff. So again, you can have up to 8 zones, which is kind of crazy, especially on a 49. It's like 5 keys or something insane. The 61 makes a little more sense, but you don't have to use all 8. The fact that I could just use 3 is awesome to me, because again, like I said, I got 3 main things. I can just access all of them from one spot. On there, looking at the patterns, you got a couple ways. Basically, they're all color-coded again. You can select multiple patterns and have a bunch of things kind of tied together, going back and forth between one another. All the patterns are independent from one another, especially when it comes to their settings. So one of my favorite things to do, if we just go and listen to the O coast, let's turn zones off, right? ARP's still on. We already got a little sequence in there. I'll clear that out. Just holding down clear, the sequencer is now empty. I can just hit record, just play anything in. The cool thing here, I can turn on scale modes after the fact, and it'll shift it into scale for me. So we got that pattern, right? I can easily go and then select a new pattern, and let's just add something in scale. And then just tie the 2 together. Press both patterns at once, it'll go from one into the next. Go back to our zones, maybe add a kick drum. Find our snare. This little guy here. Then the cool thing here is peak is also in scale, and the scales work in the zones, which is really nice. So we can just hit play and find something here. Go to peak and change the filter. Another favorite thing that I like to do on here is you actually can mute the tracks, so they'll just mute their MIDI data, which is really nice. So if I wanted to mute the drums, for example, have everything that's still going. Go to our ARP, change the gate. Maybe now we can go to patterns, right? Peak, blue, go make a new note. Let's see what we got here. Maybe that one. I'll just throw that there, easy. And again, just tie those 2 together. Oh, you can hear that they're really close together, so we'll take that one out. Bam, boom, easy. Let's find another one. Patterns, tie them 2 together. Go to my big sky. Mute the drums. Just the fact that I can do so much from just one spot is like really fun, and especially kind of just, you know, shaving off the fat and sticking to what I use the most. Set that up as a template, throw it on here, and I'm good to go, especially in a live performance. The last thing you want to do is see a bunch of stuff that you don't even care about. You know, last thing you want to do is like fine-tune your compressor on stage when really you're just trying to turn the filter up. So the ability to fully customize these templates, even though that these already come with a bunch of templates, is really cool. Like we have Big Sky, Peak, OB6, the analog rhythm, Blofeld, you know, the timeline, Dig-Attack, Digatone, Microchord. Oh, there's like tons and tons, and they're easily shareable. They easily back up your whole thing in your sessions. Instead of 32 that you have on circuit, you have 64. Each template will load your zone settings, your pattern settings, your everything, basically, everything that you need within it. And on top of all that, if that's not enough for you, there's still the in control side of things, which is basically taking control of the DAW. Another cool thing here is in control mode. One of my favorite things, I'm not sure how many of you guys use Live 10, but we have the capture button, which is really nice. So the cool thing is if you set up a default template or even just a track in Ableton where it's like MIDI 1, MIDI 2, MIDI 3, MIDI 4, you can just hit capture and your whole sequence that you just made will be captured into all 8 tracks independently in Ableton, which is like, blew my mind the first time. I was like, what would happen if I, oh my God. Just like, yeah, it was awesome to see just that pop up by itself. I didn't think it would register in each independent track, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, there's little workflow things in here. It's just another easy way to take one more step away from the screen and kind of just dive into making music and making music with your hands, you know, which is like the ultimate goal, I guess you can say. But the fact that it still allows access to a DAW in a way that won't hinder us is really powerful. The fact that you can have access to all your clips and your scenes and then jump back and forth between this and the hardware world, or even just send MIDI to this to then send to your modular, so you can finally clock your modular to Ableton without having to buy a little dongle or like a hub or this and connect that to there and then Jimmy rig this with that and, you know, use some weird splitter or something. It's just kind of like a nice central piece to any studio. The fact that you can work hardware and work all that seamlessly alongside a DAW is really, really fun. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really, like, it does a lot, but when you kind of just sit down with it, you're like, cool, it does a ton of stuff that all makes sense to me and I don't really need to like dive deep. You know, there's no multiple pages of menus or anything like that. It's all just laid out really quickly, easily, even stuff down to like the CV stuff, like you can fine tune your CV, you know, in case your modular is out of tune, you can just tune it here instead of having to tune it there. Like little tiny things, you know, calibrate it. Like I mentioned earlier, the PPQN, if you want to use this as like a clock divider for your modular, just set the PPQN to a little higher or lower. Same thing. Or, I mean, that's also really handy for, you know, syncing a bunch of old other machines. But what else? ARP, zones, sequencer, scales, patterns, sessions. Oh, yeah, I mean, there's other stuff too. Like, for example, I like that. I can easily just duplicate that around the sequence. Oh, I went one too many times, I can easily clear that out. In your pattern section, you can clear entire patterns easily. You hit shift patterns, it almost looks like a clip view, if you will, where you can kind of launch scenes, you know, of like different patterns. Of course, they're all 16 steps, so if you're trying to tie stuff, you might be a little lost in that section. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Are there any questions or anything like that? Yes, sir.
So 16 steps, you can chain how many patterns? 8?
8. Yeah, you can chain all 8, or you can do like 4 through 6 or anything like that. And again, the cool thing with that is, like I was mentioning earlier, you can have like pattern 4 be random, set to an 8th triplet, and only 5 steps. So if you tie them all together, all the rest are still the same, except for that one pattern. It's always kind of crazy. And you can even duplicate your patterns around too, from one track to another, which is kind of fun to do. And then same goes with the zones. If you want to like layer stuff, you don't have to have them all independent. You can have them completely smashed up. Do you have a question, Sean?
Yes. You said there's a template on there for the digitones.
Yeah.
It has like all the track, like each track.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's find out. Let's see. So the template for the digitone, as it stands right now, has the algorithm, ratio C, ratio A, B, harmonics, detune, feedback, the mix, and then all these are ADSR. I'm guessing this is filter frequency, filter resonance, delay send, reverb send, and then I'm sure these do something else too. I'm not sure what they do. Oh, these are empty, but like that right there is a ton of stuff. I mean, I think the most important things, at least for me, like with Circuit and the synth editor, I always had attack, release, filter, resonance, and as long as I had those, I was cool. You know, that's enough for me. But I always had like chorus or whatever the last effect was, maybe distortion or something like that. Just performance tools, really. Yeah.
I might have missed it, but external synchronization options. Are you able to drive it from 808 or analog clocks?
Like have it receive clock?
Yes.
So this will receive clock easily, like in the global In the global settings, you can basically say, is it receiving clock, is it sending clock, what MIDI out 2 is doing. So you can easily drive it from anything. You can even drive it from like Ableton, for example. If I press play in Ableton and have it receive clock, it'll just start running from there. And then, yeah, the benefit of that is being able to have everything plugged up, you know, because you can have, with the 2 MIDI outputs, I'm sure you guys know, MIDI, you can control up to 16 channels. So with 2 of them, you can essentially have up to 32 synths. Of course, you only got 8 tracks, but the fact that you can easily just change what MIDI channel this track is now sending to is easy. And then if you have your templates built for whatever synth, oh, I don't want to use the Blofeld today, let me switch that to OB6, channel 5, boom, now I got my filter stuff. My OB6 is still, you know, 3 blocks down, and then I got my controls right here. So you have polyphonic aftertouch on the keys and the pads together. The pads also have basically channel pressure, which is like kind of more like a drum type of thing, but you can use that kind of for whatever, if it's CCs or whatnot. So essentially, I'd say that the keys do have polyphonic aftertouch, but I'm not necessarily sure if it's assignable. I haven't really dove too deep into the components website to see if you can actually change that, but the components website is crazy. Like you can even change like the resolution of the knobs so that they don't turn as fast, because they're endless encoders, right? You can just do whatever. If I'm just trying to jump between 2 settings, I can set that, or I can be like, I have to turn it really hard, but it's still really fine. So if you're super hype on stage and you're just like super into it, you won't just like blow it, you know? The fact that you can customize all that stuff is really easy to do. And then the fact that you can just send a single thing or an entire thing at once. Any others?
Yeah. Is there going to be a 25 key version?
Not that I know of. I wish. Yeah, but as of right now, we have the 49 and the 61. There is no 25, at least not yet. I was mentioning earlier into like an herb verb where you can start almost modulating things per pattern in different directions and stuff. So you have 6 lanes of automation per track. And then the cool thing is, if you hold down clear, it'll just take away everything on the screen and only show you what you've automated. That way I can just turn the knob and it's gone if I want to delete it. So that way I'm not hunting and trying to see what's moving or trying to listen what's moving. I can just visually see right away what I've set up and what I can take away. Yeah, good catch. Awesome. Yeah, because that was the one thing I was driving on. I was like, don't forget automation, don't forget automation. And I didn't, so I'm proud of myself. Yes.
Say you got a couple pieces live, you're using half of them with one template, and you want to switch templates so you can work with the other half of the equipment. What's like the latency like, or what's the is it instant? Or
yeah, it's super quick. So there's a couple ways. You can do it till the end of the beat, which is, I want to go ahead and save this session, right? I can just hit the next thing, which is awful because everything's messed up. So you can have it be until the end of the beat, or if you hold down shift, it'll be instant. And which is really cool, because if you start doing program changes, you start doing weird stuff. But then the other cool thing is you can automate your program changes in one of the 6 lanes of automation too. So if you got like some analog weird thing that can receive MIDI and you use it to make a drum kit, you can kind of go and like set up all this weird stuff to kind of almost make it like an analog drum machine out of a single voice and have that kind of jump back and forth. I know some of the older machines kind of choke up if they receive too much stuff at once. But for a lot of the newer stuff, it's totally fine. Like that sounded tight. I've never done that, but that was awesome. Yeah. Yeah, so to answer your question, which is what's the latency, it's instantaneous if you hold down shift, or it'll wait until the end of the bar to kind of keep you in time. And whatever your tempo is set, if one session is 40 and you're coming from a session that's 200, it'll just stay at 200. That way it's not just an abrupt change. It'll let you get into that at 200 and then you can just go and slow it down yourself manually.
Okay. Is that the only way to change the tempo, or what different ways can you change the tempo?
As far as the tempo, if it's being externally synced, like what our friend back there was mentioning, it'll receive external MIDI tempo, but manually it would be just with a knob or a tap tempo as well.
Okay. Is there any way to program it, or is it just a DAW? Or?
I think if you were using a DAW, that'd probably be your best bet. But on the device itself, it would be manually. There's also a swing on here, which I forgot to mention, and also the swing sync rate, which is cool. It's not just 16, so you can have 30 seconds or 8s, but 16 is usually the most normal. But yeah, for your question about the tempo, yeah, you can change it manually, and or if you wanted to go from 200 to 40, you would just have to hit stop and then play into the new session, and it'll load it at its new tempo.
Is it swing per track, or is it global?
Swing's global.
They're asking, is there like a monophonic sequencing mode where it'll overdub instead of adding another polyphonic note?
No, not that I know of, but that is a really good idea. Yeah, that's a great question. If there is a polyphonic or monophonic mode of sequencing. You know, because for example, in the Ocos, I could technically, you know, put down a chord, but it's only going to play the last note that I hit. So I can keep adding, but it won't set it up monophonically. But that's a great idea. Taylor might want to jot that one down. But cool. Yes, sir.
Is there any functional difference between the 61 and the 49 key?
None. You just get, my math's terrible, but however many keys that is. Yeah, it's exactly the same, not the same size, but like the controls don't even shift. It's literally just like an extra set of keys over here. Yeah. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome, guys. Well, that's that. Thank you guys for coming. That's the 49 SL Mark III. 61, like you said, same thing, just more keys. The stickers, pens, help yourself. I'll be up here. Let me know if you want to come check it out. Feel the keys, feel the knobs, all that stuff, long throw faders, you know. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for coming.